All right, everybody, it's been a little bit, but it's time to get back in the swing of it. And thoughts for today are that have you seen enough yet? Are you preparing? Have you seen enough that you're going to start preparing? I have had so many people. There's so many events that have happened in the last year, and it's a different issue for everybody. Some people, it was the whole CrowdStrike thing. They realized, oh, something's going on. Before that, we had a big cell phone outage for half a day or something. We had a ship crash into a bridge. We had, essentially our president is not fit for office and has had to decline running going forward. And that was a big shocker to people. But if you've been in tune to anything, you would see that. The war in Israel, when that took off, when that kicked off, that was a really big one. People who are not into firearms and have people in their household that are not into firearms are like, okay, I think now you can buy a firearm. So there's been a lot going on. So what is the hot button that makes you realize what's going on? And if you haven't realized what's going on yet, how much more do you need to see? I mean, there's literally event after event after event. The Middle East is getting ready to just erupt right now. The media is not covering that at all. And if you're a Christian and you're in your Bible, there's a lot of people who think there's a lot of bad end time stuff starting there. So it's a different point that brings everybody into the game essentially. But like how far do we have to go before you start preparing if you haven't? And I would just invite everybody that's seeing this, just don't tune out yet. But like, if you're not preparing, like, take some time, look at the things going on in the world, and see about how prepared or unprepared you are. And I don't think you need to be afraid of that. I think you got time to do whatever you want to do. It's just that you need to act. And so, like, in martial arts, we have this process within our school where we have this thing we call the defensive frame. And it's essentially a defense, well, it's just what it is. It's a posture that gives a student the capability to defend themselves. And then once necessary in an engagement, then they can become offensive when the opening occurs. So, like, what does your defensive framework look like? What does your frame look like for your home, on your family, for your life? Is your foundation spiritual? Are you engaged there? Do you know God? Do you know Christ? Are you, do you feel God calling to you? Whether you're already a believer or not. Like, if you're a believer, is he calling you to something that you're not doing? If you're not a believer, are you just fighting that? Things to evaluate, So without a good spiritual foundation, you're probably going to have a rough go if things get bad, because you're not going to, like I just saw an interview the other day and they're talking about how it's crazy to them that the secular world is stressing out, and that, the Christian world, some of them are stressing out quite a bit too. But for the most part, they're like, oh, I've read the book. I see where we're going, and I believe that, and so they're not wigging out. So, that's maybe like the first step in your frame. So, just like in martial arts, what we would deal with is that's the foundation. Your posture is the foundation. Your footwork, the stance, all of that. So, and then your family. Like, so in your household, where is your family at? What are your family's needs? What are their current needs? What are they going to need going forward? If you're the leader in the family, are you going to be able to provide stability to that? So kind of going back to, are you solid? Are you emotionally okay to, just stand your ground and handle what's coming at you? And that's difficult because you may fail every day in little ways, or you may fail in big ways, but in the overall, are you accomplishing that, if that's your position? If you're a family member watching this and you're within the family, these all apply to you just on a substructure of the overall. Like, so are you aiding? Are you helping? Are you helping develop all the things that are needed? Are you being a burden, or are you being helpful? So these are things we need to evaluate, all of us. So, and then like, so what's your stock? And so like, you know, if we go back to like a martial arts fighter, that's like all your tools in your toolbox. Do you know what you have, and do you have things held back that are, you know, ready to go? So in your household, that's like food, so rations, water, all that stuff. Like, you have more than 3 days. Like, we saw this thing with debit cards and everything else going down. I mean, we could have a banking crisis and people's money would be tied up, but nobody keeps, you know, actual currency on hand anymore. So do you have some resources? And these are just things that we're seeing. We saw it during, you know, when we went through the lockdowns and COVID and everything else, when supply chain issues were happening. And, you know, people, you know, I remember being at the store when all that was beginning, and like buying a bag of flour, buying sugar, buying things, and, you know, another person going by us with a cart had a cart full of Lunchables. They had no staples. They just had a cart full of Lunchables. And I'm like, yeah, you know, like, do you know how to cook a meal? That'd be a big deal. So anyway, so, you know, for like the preppers out there, or the people, this is like just preaching to the choir, but, you know, do you have things on hand? How much knowledge do you have? Do you have books in print with knowledge that you don't have, so you can study them? You know, that works for everything from first aid to, you know, cooking, food preparation, you know, how to make a fire. I don't know what your needs will be. I mean, I don't think, hopefully we don't have the power go out. People are concerned about that. I mean, but, you know, just like going back to that defensive fighter, like, how many different dimensions is it going to come at you from, you know, and how prepared are you? You know, within the kind of the warrior class world, like, you know, a lot of people get into firearms and that's their answer. And yeah, that's a fairly long range answer. You know, a hand would be the close range version of that. If you're not practicing a little bit in any of those, you have holes in what you're going to do, you know, as far as your capabilities. So above all those things, though, knowledge is probably the most important. So anyway, that would be your stock. So, and then if you evaluate all those things, like, where are you at? Like, where are you at? And then where do you want to be? And where you want to be, you can look at your overall outcome, and then you can plot a course forward. So the last part would be find the path. So if it's in the spiritual side of it, like, are you doing enough? Are you not doing enough? Are you studying? Are you learning? Are you helping others? Are you serving? You know, are you, you know, are you looking after your family? Are you leading there? Just, you know, all those things. And then as far as the preparing and physical preparation, like, are you doing your best to get healthy to where you don't need medications, and that you don't need the medical system, and can you stand outside of the debt system? All these things that bind you to the world. Do you have a path forward away from those things so that you can be an autonomous being, essentially? And we don't talk about that enough, I don't think, but that is always the goal, right? It's to be completely independent, and that's difficult. So everybody has to evaluate that in their own way. They have to figure out if that's a long course or a short course. I mean, sometimes it can be short depending on what you want to give up, and sometimes you're just stuck where you're at to grind it out. So, and that's the same for putting away stock. Like, you know, stock, like I said, can be all kinds of things. It can be, you know, it can be actually storing up stockpiles. It can be, you know, storing up knowledge. It can be gathering physical capabilities. It's all sorts of things. But we'll do some stuff in the future. We'll cover these a lot more closely. But at the end of the day, do you see what's coming? Like, do you realize there's a shift? None of us can see what's coming, but we can feel it. And part of why, like, so I decided I was going to do this video. I put it off a day, and I didn't want to get back into these just yet because life is so chaotic right now. But it's time. Like, I've had 3 people approach me in the last day and say, like, it just feels heavy, something's coming. And there's a lot of different factors. Some of those people, it's debt. Some of those people, they just feel it heavy, like the forces of good and evil are colliding. It's just all sorts of craziness. That's why I say nobody knows which way it's going to come from. And so my biggest point would be is, like, if you don't know where you're at spiritually, you're going to have a hard time navigating through the rest. There are a lot of people, like, there's a lot of good traits. Some people are very organized and they have things in order, but they don't have that part of their life in order. And so when real hardship comes, it's a struggle to get through it. So anyway, so we will cover more. We'll get in depth. We'll get into some self-defense stuff. I'm going to have that coming. I've had a lot of injuries lately, so it's part of why I've put off some of this. But we are going to start showing a little footprint for basic self-defense, and people can do that at home. They'll be better if you have a training partner, but we're going to bring it down to where anybody can do it. It's not going to be crazy flexibility issues and stuff. What we want to do is make it so the general public has the ability to feel safe in their environment. And not to rant, but, like, I've had this thought for quite a while. Like, there's a big group out there that are afraid of firearms. They want all the scary guns taken away. And in my thought process, in my world, is that, like, I don't care if it's a scary gun or not. The guy on the other side who has, if he's got the scary gun, he still needs to have the mental state where he's afraid of you. And, like, not in the beginning, but, like, that's kind of where we come from, is that they need to be concerned about what they don't know and what they don't understand, because there's a lot of training out there, but there's a lot of other extensions of that with people that like, they just touch on things. They go to a class, they think they're trained, and that's not the case. So anyway, it unfortunately leads to, like, a total mindset that you never escape. But anyway, like I said, not to rant, but we will be going forward with some stuff: situational awareness, spiritual awareness, really get into some Bible verses and study, and so getting back to it. So I hope you guys find this good, and I hope it finds you well at home or wherever you're at. So we'll talk to you later.